I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into the eye-opening memoir called A White Man's China. It's written by George Jaeggi. With over 50 trips and 800 days spent in China, the author shares a candid view of what it's like to set up manufacturing plants and navigate Chinese culture as an outsider. If you're curious about the challenges and revelations of doing business in China, you won't want to miss this book or this conversation. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his powerful book. The links are below this interview. George, good to see you here today on Spotlight. Thank you for being our guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show.
It's my pleasure. When you travel to China, it's a lot different than traveling to the US or a lot different than traveling to Canada. I mean, first of all, you're in a communist country, and that becomes very, very clear once you arrive. And also, it's not a very diverse country. It's mostly, almost exclusively Chinese, hence the title of your book, A White Man's China. Tell us what first brought you to China and what your experience was like.
Well, I was in the automotive manufacturing business, and the business, all our competitors started buying all their parts in China or produce them in China. So I talked them, the owners, to open a plant in China. And I was very naive about it. I thought, well, you just go to China and you subcontract it or you build a factory or whatever. And I went in 2005, the first time to China. And it was different than what I read in the books, what I read in from consultants. It was strange, but you learn on the way. But to give you one example, we were in Xiamen, and then they said we're going to go to a meeting in Shanghai, but we're going to stop over in Ningbo. So we took a plane, we stopped in Ningbo. I said, Ningbo, what the heck is this? And I looked it up. It has 8 million people in Ningbo. I never heard that name before. So I looked up a little bit. There were at that time 64 cities over a million in China. But like, over here, like if you like, I mean, Toronto, 2.5 million people, it's a big city. But like
Exactly.
8 million, I never heard the name. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's when you
amazing
start.
that this country has cities that are so big, 22 million, 20 million. I
Right,
mean, in the United States, we have 8 million people in New York City, and it's considered huge. There they
right.
have cities triple that size. It is amazing.
Yeah, at that time, then we went to Shanghai, and Shanghai has 25 million. And at that time, Canada had 28 million.
Yeah.
So,
The
I
whole
mean,
country.
the whole country,
Exactly, exactly.
so, you just start seeing things a little bit different. And
Exactly.
yeah, I was very naive, but I learned fairly quick what you have to do to succeed.
What are
And
some of the things you have to do to succeed?
well, you have to learn and accept their culture. Like the Chinese, they don't want to lose their face. So you have to be very, very careful how you talk to them. You have to make them believe that they also are winning. Like it has to be a win-win. You can, whatever decision you want to make, you have to put it forward in a way that it's in their benefit as well. And of course, you have to know how to negotiate, and negotiations are usually very, very short. What you have to do is take them for lunch or go for dinner with them, have a lot of the little drinks, the Mau Tais and the Gangbei, which means bottoms up, and don't discuss any business during dinner.
Mm.
When dinners are finished and you say goodbye, usually they also want you to go then to a karaoke place or some other place. But basically, by the time you say goodbye, you say, oh, by the way, remember what we talked about in the afternoon? When do you think we could sit together and really make a decision? And then the answer they give you, you basically know if it was positive or negative. And then the day after you meet, and usually the deals are done
Yeah. A
because you
lot of
would
it's subtle, a lot of it's nuance, a lot of it is etiquette, as you
yes,
mentioned, knowing when to discuss business, when not to discuss business, to take
right,
that motai and drink it, even if it tastes like gasoline,
right,
because it makes you part of the culture and they think that you're a man for having that drink. Let me ask
right.
you this. What about government intervention? Did you have to deal with bureaucrats when trying to set up shop in China?
Yes. I had a lot of interaction with government. To give you an idea, we needed approval for the environment because we opened a plant up north in Janssen, and usually it takes quite a long time to get those approvals. And I had a meeting with the manager for the discussion about those approvals. And I met her at 11 o'clock in her office, and I had all my parts with me, and I showed her all the stuff. And when it was 12 o'clock, I sort of said, like she says, well, we're going to have a meeting about this, and that will be in about 3, 4 weeks, and then we can discuss if we can give you the permit. At 12 o'clock, I said, oh, by the way, how about lunch? Like, do you have any plans for lunch? She says, what do you have in mind? I said, well, at the hotel, like I can make arrangement to have a room at the hotel. How many people can come? I said, well, those rooms are good for, 15, 20 people. She goes on the phone and she calls one person. She says, okay, let's meet there at 1 o'clock. I get there and all the committee members showed up.
Hmm.
Nobody said a word. I sat beside her. My translator sat on the other side. And nobody said a word during the meal. The meal came like I arranged it, that it's a typical Chinese meal.
Hmm.
And everybody ate. And after half an hour, they got up and left, except the lady and my translator. And I said to the translator, that didn't go very well. Nobody asked a question like I expected. She said, oh, it got approved.
Yeah.
Before they left, she said to them, thank you for being here. I just approved this gentleman's application and everything is fine.
Yeah.
And it was done. Now, if you don't know this, you would have either, I didn't have to bribe them, I didn't have to do anything other than, yes, you pay for lunch. But I mean, this is not, this is just normal.
Yeah, even in America, you'll bring your potential
Right.
business partner out to lunch.
Right.
And you might not take out the governmental regulator at the lunch, but whatever works. Like you said,
Right.
it's not a bribe, it's just a lunch. And it's the way business is done there. And that's the important thing about your book, is that people will learn that there is a proper way of doing
Right.
business in China if you want to succeed, right?
Like I made lots of mistakes, and that's all in the book, but I also made lots of successes. And of course, you always have to be careful that you don't interfere with the government or, that you upset somebody. And, before I published the book, I had my Chinese lawyer look through it just to make sure there is nothing in there that if I go to China that I'm in trouble. I mean, like for example, they have the WeChat, which we have here, the Facebook or whatever. The WeChat is, in my opinion, way more
Intrusive
user
or
friendly.
invasive. Yeah.
It's incredible. However, it is totally controlled by, like the government will know everything that you do on WeChat. On the other hand, on Facebook, you wonder if the government doesn't know what we do on Facebook. So really, anyway, so you just have to be careful that you don't use words in there that are red flags. If there are certain words which you shouldn't say in China. And so, you just try to be normal.
Yeah. I
So
think
as I
like what
said,
I think what you said in the beginning of the interview was very, very important, is that the Chinese like to save face,
yes,
whether it's a bureaucrat, a governmental leader, or a business person, they want to be treated with great respect.
yes,
They want their nation treated with great respect, and they want their culture treated with great respect. Those
right.
three boxes have to be checked if you're going to be able to do business or survive in China.
Right. And as you just said, like the cultural festivals are very, very important in China. And you better have a calendar with you at all times that you know what's coming up and mention that to them. And you tell them, oh, that's great, whatever. They're really, really proud of their festivals. And they are very, very happy when you mention their festivals. Like they appreciate it. And it gives a positive atmosphere when you talk to them about it.
Exactly. You want to have some moon cakes at the Moon Festival
Right.
and know what's going on with their culture. I found them very lovely, charming people who were very kind and considerate in return.
Right.
No doubt the government tends to be a firm government, but the Chinese people will tell you it has to be with 1.5 billion people in the country. So it's a unique culture. It's very nationalistic, and people have a lot of pride in it. Before we leave you today, let me ask you, who is your target audience for this book, and what do you hope they get from it?
Uh, uh, One target are the Chinese people, actually. Chinese people who live outside of China, because for the Chinese, it's as important for them to know how we feel about them the same way as it's important for us to know how they feel about us. Like, I basically want to build bridges between the cultures, between the Eastern and the Western societies. And like, definitely somebody who is thinking of doing business in China, I think the book can be very helpful. But the one thing I keep mentioning also in the book, when you want to do business in China, don't think about made in China. Think about made for China. Because the market in China itself, you're 1.5 billion people. If you can bring a product over there and produce it for China, yeah, you can produce it and import it back to the States or to Europe or wherever. But if you have an idea that you can actually do business within China, the growth is unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
you have opportunities.
Exactly.
So
And that's a great way to leave the audience that if you learn about business culture in China, it'll behoove you because,
right,
as you mentioned, there are about 30 million people in all of Canada. In
right,
just one city that's a medium-sized city, there's 25 or 30 million people. The
right.
market is unbelievably large. Get a tiny fraction of that market, and you're a
Yes,
multimillionaire or even a billionaire. It is a vast market, and there are wonderful opportunities to be had beyond, like you said, making it there and bringing it back here. The name of the
right.
book is A White Man's China. It is written by George Jaeggi with over 50 trips and 800 days spent in China. George shares a candid view of what it's like to set up manufacturing plants and do business and navigate Chinese culture as an outsider. If you're curious about the challenges and the revelations of doing business in China, you don't want to miss this book. It is a book that could benefit you greatly. George, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure talking to you and maybe talk to you another time.
I look forward to that, my friend. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on
Okay.
Spotlight.